Booga 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 booga. Welcome, 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 welcome. For those of you joining me on the live, for those of you joining me on the live on Facebook, sorry for the delay, but I literally had one of the greatest pleasures I've had this evening. It was so nice to hear, but it happened right when I went to broadcast. There's a marching band. We're living in very interesting times, very exciting times, right? Very scary times at the same time. I had a marching band coming down my block, literally in front of my front door. And they cat, and get out the vote. Like going crazy. So I didn't want all of that noise or music, because it's not noise to me. But I didn't want all of that music to filter into the broadcast. So I had to wait until they passed. First off, hello to everyone. This is officially 1 week from Election Day. And I just want to start off first by welcoming everybody in. It's been quite a road that we've traveled here. I have been doing Secretary of Shade. I've been doing this little meeting of ours, these cabinet meetings, for 2 years now. We started back in 2018. We started with this. It all started with me reading Omarosa's book, Unhinged, and we just kind of kept going from there. We evolved from reading books to now talking about political issues, current events, what's happening in the world of politics, and just in the world in general. And we've gotten to know each other over this time, and it's been quite interesting. But this is where the rubber meets the road. We are finally at showtime. We're at D-Day. It's been 2 years since we started. In that time, we managed to turn the House blue, not quite the same with the Senate. We did get Kristen Sinema in one of those seats. But it's been quite a road. As we look at election time and election day, we're exactly 1 week away. There's a lot going on. Record numbers in early voting. A lot of folks are voting early, and we love to see it. I'll actually be going out tomorrow to cast my vote. I did want to do poll working, but unfortunately, and this is not to throw shade, the city of Baltimore couldn't quite get it together with their poll working program. They have enough poll workers, but the communication just wasn't good, and I hate to say that. But I know you guys would ask and be like, oh, because I wanted to film the experience, what I could film, and, kind of fill you in. And I hate to say it, but it was just very last minute. Everything about it was last minute, and that kind of hurt my heart, being a Baltimore City citizen and seeing the process for election judges be so janky, for a better word. That's the only way that I can put it. It was quite frankly janky. So unfortunately I won't do that, but I will be casting my vote tomorrow, early voting. Now, with that being said, particularly to our friends in the South, there have been very long lines, and especially in red states that have the potential to be turned blue in this election. The lines have been very long and very arduous, and we know why. Now, one thing that I wanted to cover, as we are all going out and exercising our right to vote, Halloween is this weekend, so stay in the house, stay safe. We just don't want anything else happening. But poll watching. Now, for those of us, as we've done these meetings together, right? We've learned so much about the process together. It's things that I didn't know that we learned together. I learned with you guys. I had to research. You really made me do my homework, right? But bitch, I didn't know that there were poll watchers. Now, you may say, well, DDM, what Trump doing now? He got poll watchers, bitch. He gonna be intimidating people at the polls? I'm not saying you ain't gonna see them people either. But allegedly, poll watching is a thing. It's a thing on both sides. Who knew? So what poll watching is, like, you have the poll workers and the election judges and everybody who make sure that you know how to work the machine and that you wait in line and, you know, you got your right ballot and they check your ID and all of that good stuff. But there's also people who come in, and I couldn't believe this shit, bitch, who come in and do poll watching. Okay. Now, I want to read this. This is from Vox.com. I really like Vox. That's one of I like that website. So they say with poll watching, and this is from the Trump campaign. This is what Donald Trump said during the first presidential debate last month. I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully because that's what has to happen. I'm urging them to do it. To facilitate that, the Trump campaign launched Army for Trump, an effort to mobilize tens of thousands of volunteers for get out the vote efforts, including poll watching. A Trump campaign spokesperson told Vox that it hopes to fill 40,000 poll watching shifts and expects to exceed their goal of recruiting 50,000 volunteer poll watchers. Okay? Who knew, bitch? Laws governing what exactly observers can do at polling stations and who can serve as one varies by state. Unlike poll workers who assist and engage with voters, like I said, partisan, meaning, you know, of course, they rooting for one team or the other, poll watchers are mostly just that, the eyes and ears of the political parties, looking for or documenting potential irregularities that may affect the outcome for their party, candidate, or ballot initiative. Poll watching is part of the democratic process, so like I said, this is nothing new. But it has gotten even more attention in 2020 because of the rhetoric around the election. Designated poll watchers, which again both parties have, usually have to be officially selected by a party or candidate and often have to be registered voters or even registered in the voting precinct they're assigned to watch. In many cases, they are restricted from interacting with voters, so they can't say shit to you, bitch. So if they try it at the polls, get in that ass. Alert your poll worker, the poll judge. Because they're not supposed to be talking to you, niece. But depending on the jurisdiction, they can potentially challenge the eligibility of other voters. It's about to be a current extravaganza, okay? Those kinds of objections can slow down the voting process for everyone when some voters already face long waits at the poll. So keep this, right? Boom. So you got one of these poll watchers and shit. And let's say, I'm going to use this because this is probably one of the things that are going to happen. Let's say you have a person of Mexican or Hispanic descent. Okay? And they go to vote. They show their ID. One of these poll watchers, one of these Trump poll watchers will be like, wait a minute, bitch, Current show up like, are they really eligible to vote? Now, you know, current on cars, these people don't cause all kinds of problems and shit. They holding up the line. Basically, this is the equivalent of somebody wanting a goddamn price check at Food King or Kroger or wherever the hell you go. And now the whole line backed up because she don't want to pay the extra 5 cents for her can of green beans. That's essentially what's going to happen here. Now they done held up the line. You've been waiting in line all this time. Now you got to wait for an authentication process because somebody's trying it. Now, I'm not mad at people wanting to make sure that elections are done correctly. But as we know, we're living in a world of extremes right now. So what is really intended to be a safeguard and just make sure everything is fair is probably going to turn into a whole fucking spectacle. And if they try this shit in Baltimore City, somebody's probably going to get their ass beat. I'm just saying it all. So if you see, if I do a special report about somebody getting their ass beat at at an election voting site, you know why. Somebody tried it. Okay. So you're going to have poll watchers, and like I said, poll watchers exist on both sides of the aisle. Bitch, you may see the Trump poll watchers and the Democratic poll watchers, they might start claiming. I mean, this shit is real. Now, this has happened. This has always been a thing. Once again, I want to exercise. This is not nothing new. This is not something that just happened. They've had these always. But I take special attention to it in this election because we already know how this is going to go. Okay, so somebody, I'm telling you now, they try this shit in Baltimore City, somebody going to get their ass beat. Okay? And hello to everyone just joining. But that's a poll watcher. Okay? So, while we got poll watchers, okay, I pretty much understand you want to make sure the election is fair. In the early days, this is what they say. Elections were kind of free for all, sometimes literally drunken parties where people got together and cast their ballots in public. That must be before black people and women could vote, because, bitch, I ain't never seen nobody drunk at the polls, bitch. But anyway, it was all done out in the open, which meant everyone could see or hear who their fellow citizens, then white men, voted for. Even when paper ballots came into fashion, political parties handed them out. Basically, you took the party ballot you want, put it in their box, and that was that. So this was when nobody else in the country could vote. Basically, this is horrifying in itself. Your officials were basically elected at a goddamn party where a bunch of white men got tore and decided who was going to run the goddamn country. This is America. Don't catch you slipping, ho. I'm just saying. Okay? So, but that began to change in America in the decades after the Civil War when voting became much more professionalized. A big part of this was the adoption in the 1880s and the 1890s of what's known as the Australian ballot or secrecy ballot, which basically scrapped the old system for something similar to what voters are used to today. Instead of political parties running the show, state officials designate polling areas and distribute ballots with all the candidates. And most importantly, the voter marks it in secret. So, after the Civil War, before the Civil War, basically when the country was all ran by white men, and, you know, to a certain degree it still is, but they used to all basically get drunk, pick the ballot of the person that they want to vote for, drop it in a box, and they just get drunk and drop the ballot in, and bitch, that's how you got policy and procedures done. Over a damn drink. Okay? That's a poll watcher. That brings me into mail-in ballots, okay? So, I am going to say this one time, maybe two times. If you can hear my voice, or if you are within the sound of my voice at this point, bitch, do not put your ballot in the fucking mailbox. It's too late. Your ass should have did that about a month ago. 2 weeks. It's too late. Do not mail in your ballot at this point, bitch. It's a week before election day. Okay? Don't mail in the ballot. That's done. At this point, you're going to have to get your lazy ass up, go to a designated drop box, okay? Make sure it is official, read, and drop your ballot off there. If you don't trust the drop boxes, which, hey, I definitely understand, but the ballots inside the drop box, at least in the state of Maryland, you can track your ballot. My mother's tracking her ballot because she ain't got shit else to do. But I love her. You can also vote early. Okay? You can vote early. Go stand in the line. Now, for my friends in the South, our cabinet members down bottom, unfortunately, your area has a lot of gerrymandering, a lot of tomfoolery going on. It's a lot of bullshit going on in the South and in key states. So you're going to have to wait in line. Unfortunately, I know those lines are long. But at this point, it's only one day. And that's what I'm going to be saying until Election Day. It's only one day. You can sacrifice waiting in line for one day. You've done it for sneakers. You've done it for concert tickets. You've done it for movies. One day. Okay? For a lot of us, you can vote early. Once again, for the people in the back, you can vote early. So if you know November, if you already know you plan on working overtime next Tuesday on the 3rd, why the hell you trying to get off on the 3rd? You got from now into the 3rd to vote early. If you don't want to wait in the line, drop your ballot off in a designated drop box. Now, with that being said, and I'm not being shady, maybe I am being shady, but it's not my intention. I just want this to reach folks. Please read all of the directions on your ballot. Make sure everything is filled out. Make sure you use the right pen. Do not be pulling out pink goddamn Hello Kitty pens and shit to fill out your ballots. I'm saying that mostly for young people. Okay? Make sure you read the direction. Anything you gotta sign, anything on the back of the envelope you gotta sign, make sure you read it and drop it off. Okay? Yes, V. V brings up another point. If you're going to be waiting in line to vote, bring snacks. Okay? This is not the line for the goddamn Jurassic Park ride at Disney World. Okay? Bring snacks. You're going to be waiting a while. Bring water. If you're the type of person that you got to take a certain medication at a certain time and you know that your ass is going to be out there all day, bring the medication with you with a bottle of water at least. Okay? It's only one day. Plan your day. Also, there may be an issue. You know, we got poll watchers, we got poll workers, we got campaign people. Stay calm. Don't let nobody pick no fights with you. Don't let anybody take you out of the box. Your mission is to vote. And that's it. That's it. Don't be, if somebody got an attitude, let them have an attitude, sis. Don't let nobody bait you. If some fool don't have their mask on, make sure you got your mask on. And tell his ass or her ass to stay 6 feet away from you. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay? But it's only one day. And we're officially 1 week away from voting. Now, here's the thing. And I'm speaking to you because I know the last time we had some Trump visitors show up in the comments. And I welcome you to hear what I have to say. By all means, maybe you'll catch a word. Here's the thing. If somebody needs a ride to the polls, take them. Don't be petty about gas money, because bitch, you was going to go to the damn voting site any goddamn way. Okay? Because this is one of those elections that has to be a landslide election. It can't be super close. It can't be a shadow of a doubt. So we need folks to really get out here and cast their ballot so we can get the madman out of office. Because if it is close, and if it is questionable, it's going to get contested. That now brings me to our next order of business, Amy Coney Barrett, who was confirmed and essentially sworn in at a super spreader event for COVID last night on the White House lawn by Supreme Court jigaboo Clarence Thomas. Witnessed by your bewitched president. Okay? I say that to say this. If this election is close, the Supreme Court is not well balanced anymore. Judge Roberts being that one conservative that tips the hat, that don't matter anymore. So if it gets contested, Trump now has the Supreme Court in his favor because it's mostly conservative. And while it is true that the Supreme Court is not supposed to be political, do you really think that three of the judges that are sitting in there, three, not one, not two, but three of the judges in the Supreme Court on the conservative end have been confirmed during the Trump era? Who you think they're going to vote? Who you think they're going to side with? Okay? So even if Justice Roberts says, you know what, I'm going to vote for, I'm going to go with the liberals on this, it doesn't matter. He's still outvoted. He's going to have to phone a friend for them to even be even. And I guarantee you, the Supreme Court is not going to be split on this decision. So it has to be a landslide. There's no other option at this point. It's not an option. We have run out of options, people. That's not an option anymore. So it has to be a landslide. And I also want to stress this. If a decision is not made on November 3rd, do not get frustrated. And here's why. Because you have mail-in ballots that have to be counted. They have to count all of those ballots from the drop boxes, which they should actually start counting right away. So you may not get an exact result on November 3rd. But do not despair. Keep the faith. It may take a little bit of time. Now, me personally, I will check in with y'all on November 3rd. For my own safety and for my own, my own little conspiracy theories I have in my head, I personally will not be venturing out much on November 3rd. That's just me. I'm pretty much going to be in my goddamn house once it starts getting dark. Okay? That's just me. I've had people recognize me in the street, both good and bad, for this very YouTube channel and these meetings. I'm not playing with anyone. Okay? So it has to be that way. Now, I've seen things about Amy Coney Barrett not being qualified. She's only been a judge for X amount of years. She hasn't tried a case, all that. We know the bitch ain't qualified. But I'm speaking directly to people of color right now. When have you ever seen where in America, in certain cases, a white person has to be qualified to do the job? Your president ain't even qualified. And he got the highest job in the land. So, yes, we know she's not qualified, but grass is green. Okay? We already knew she wasn't fucking qualified. It is what it is. Now, another thing that I want to touch on, which could not have come at a worse time. So we had another police-involved shooting between a black man and two white officers. Okay? Walter Wallace Jr. Okay, this happened in Philadelphia. Fatally shot in front of his mother while reportedly experiencing a mental health crisis. Okay. So, I'm going to read to you events as they unfolded from what was able to be gathered in regards to this incident. Of course, Philly protested last night. Some shit got looted, got burned. A lot of officers got hurt. And somebody blew up an ATM. We're going to get to that. So, according to a report from the Philadelphia Police Department, officers made their way to the 6100 block of Locust Street in the Cobbs Creek neighborhood of West Philadelphia after receiving a report about a man with a knife. A live video, because there's always video, posted on Instagram on Monday afternoon by bystanders sitting close by in a car on a block shows what took place in the moments before officers fired their weapons. Wallace, first standing on the sidewalk, moves toward officers who are standing in the middle of the street. As Wallace advances toward them, the officers walk backward away from Wallace with their guns pointed toward him. Okay? Wallace pursues the officers to the other side of the street, in between parked cars and back into the street, for about 25 seconds. During this time, Wallace's mother follows Wallace in an attempt to shield him and stop him from advancing toward the police. Other bystanders scream for both Wallace and the officers to stop. Officers can be heard yelling, "Back off, man," and dropped the weapon. Another bystander, a young black man, follows behind Wallace before officers scream, "Move, move, move," to him as they prepare to use their weapons. Once Wallace is back in the street, each officer fires several rounds of shots. Wallace falls to the ground immediately. His mother and other bystanders run to his side, visibly angry with the police for shooting him. In the video, Wallace is seen standing several feet away from the officers when they shoot him. "I'm yelling, 'Put down the gun, put down the gun,' and everyone is saying, 'Don't shoot him, he's going to put the knife down. We know him,'" Maurice Holloway, a witness, told the Philadelphia Inquirer. "Why didn't they use a taser?" Wallace's father, Walter Wallace Sr., told the publication. "His mother was trying to defuse the situation," he added. "He has mental issues. Why you have to gun him down?" Okay? Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney, who spoke to the family Monday night, said the video of the incident presents difficult questions that must be answered. The two officers, whose names have not been released, were removed from street duty, and the PPD's officer-involved shooting investigating unit has launched an investigation into the shooting, which Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw said will fully address residents' questions about the fatal shooting. Both officers were wearing body cameras. Ahead of the unrest, Outlaw says she planned to join Kenney to meet with members of the community and members of Wallace's family to hear their concerns. "While at the scene this evening, I heard and felt the anger of the community. Everyone involved will forever be impacted," Outlaw said. Okay? Now, here's the thing. We have seen various incidents, both online and read in the paper, on news sites, of people with mental disabilities who are not black or of color diffused. In this case, that did not happen. I honestly don't think that the police departments around the country are really trained well in nonviolent confrontation. I just don't think they are. And if they are trained well, I think there's something about that makes police people super hypersensitive or hyper nervous or whatever you want to call it when they are faced and having to meet people of color in aggressive situations. And that needs to be fixed. Like, it's one of those things. Dad brought up a great point. Why didn't they taser him? Did you not have your taser on you? Because that was a problem. He was close enough to you if you've seen the video. He was close enough where they could have went ahead and did the taser thing, and that totally could have subdued him and worked. Okay? Did they not have their tasers on them? Like, what was the problem? And I just think we need to really look into that. When people say defund the police, they are not saying, no police officers. They're saying take some of that money and put it into other resources. Why does everything have to be, there are police officers in my city, at the very least, and I'm just speaking on my city, who make more money than elected officials in overtime alone. And here's how this works. So, when they say defund the police, if I'm a police officer, right, and I want overtime, and I decide I get off at 4, I'm going to pull somebody over for a broken tail light or some crazy ass shit. That's now going to take me over my time. Now I'm getting paid overtime for something really bullshit. That's what we mean by defunding the police. It's about also, are the police getting regular psych evals? Are they? I think honestly, police officers should be required to get yearly counseling. Not saying you would go, every 2 weeks or every week like you would if you had like the insurance counseling. But when I say police officers should get yearly counseling, I think that they should get a psych eval and sit with a real therapist and counselor and psychiatrist at least twice a year. It should be like a biannual thing. You do it at the top of the summer, you do it at the top of the winter. Middle of the year, end of the year. So that you can go ahead, and I know I'm preaching, a lot of y'all are agreeing with this, and I thank you. So that way, police can decompress and speak to some of the things that they may be facing in the field. Also, too, so that those psychiatrists can document what a history for that officer. Does the officer have issues at home? Is the officer going through a marital dispute? Is the officer having problems with their children? All of these things could very well play into how they perceive the public when they are policing them. Okay? Because if I'm an officer and I'm the father of a teenage daughter, and my teenage daughter is hanging out with what I presume the wrong crowd, or I don't like that teenage daughter's boyfriend, and he just gets under my skin, and we've had issues, what's to say that, because we're human beings, right? What's to say they may see a young man, a young black man, who reminds them of that boyfriend. And bitch get a flashback. Okay? Also, too, that 2-year thing, because honestly, if you do a psych eval on a person at least 2 times a year, and I'm not a therapist, I'm not a professional, okay? So if you're a professional therapist, I apologize. You may not feel this way. I'm just saying as a general person and something that I'm proposing that can work, right? If a cop truly is racist or prejudiced, by having those regular psych evals, eventually, in some form or fashion, it's probably going to show itself one way or another. And then you can address that. Okay? That's what I'm saying. So that we can get some of these officers off the street. Because eventually they're going to slip up. Every 6 months, you know what I will also do? Because you're a public servant? Let's do a social media scrub. And when I say a social media scrub, let's go ahead, if we know we got a psych eval coming up for an officer, let's just do a check and see what we can find on social media. What secret groups are out here that people screenshotting? Let's look into all of that so that we can have people better equipped to service the public, because ultimately that is your job. And it needs to be an independent psychologist or psychiatrist doing the job. Not someone that works for the state. They should have an outlying person that does that. And I think, honestly, they should switch to psychiatrists every year. So you will go to that same psychiatrist for that whole year, for your 2 times a year. But starting that next year, they'll have a chart that the new psychiatrist can follow. And this could totally be not the way that you were doing it health. But I'm just saying, just to get a better spin on it, right? Where they keep that, when you get assigned to your new psychiatrist, they can read the history in your chart. Read those notes. Okay? That's all I'm saying. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want the psychiatrist or the psychologist to hit me in the DM. Be talking about, you got me bad advice. What are you doing? Oh my God. I don't want the medical professionals coming at me. You know, I'm just a simple man. What I think is a simple plan. Okay? Now, to leave on a lighthearted note, Mike Tyson has a podcast called Hot Boxing. And if you're not familiar with this rapper, Bootsy Badass, okay? Bootsy is incredibly problematic, okay? Incredibly problematic. And says and does some things that I, quite frankly, am horrified by sometimes. But if you are familiar, Bootsy had made some remarks about Dwayne Wade and Dwayne Wade's daughter, Zaya, who is transgender. And whether you agree, here's the thing. I'm not here because I am a member of the LGBTQ community. I am not here to say that you should agree with how a person raises their child, because that's your opinion. And you have the right to that. So I'm not here to police you on how dare you say that, because you have the right to think that. You have the right to feel the way that you feel. And I think if we allow people to feel the way that they feel, but just take note of that shit, we will all get along a lot better. Okay? But here's the problem. And this is where I was so proud to watch an interview, because this is Mike Tyson, Iron Mike, right? I was so proud to see the growth in Mike Tyson. I was so proud to have a man who is the symbol of all things masculine, hyper-masculine, and manly say, wait a minute. And Mike even said, and this is why I knew it was so real. This is why I knew Mike was coming from a real place. Because when Boosie was like, yeah, I just don't agree because he's a child and he's young and they should be letting him make that decision in X, Y, Z. And Mike was like, I agree with you. And that's how I knew he was getting ready to have a real conversation. Because Mike didn't say, how dare you feel that way? Okay? He said, what I loved is, who are you to tell somebody how to raise their child? And see, here's the thing. Boosie has 8 kids. Boosie has said that he's had grown women sleep with his underage boys. So you're not exactly the example of great parenting, your goddamn self. But for some reason, especially in the black community, when it comes to homosexuality or women in leadership roles, people love to pick and choose and sit on a moral high horse for some reason. Okay? And what I loved about what Mike said, because Mike scared the shit out of him, was Mike was like, who are you? Who are you to tell somebody that they can't live in their truth, or what age they should decide to live in their truth? And I think looking at the interview, Mike was more, I don't want to say annoyed, but I think because it was a child that Bootsy was commenting on, I think that might have raised some questions for Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson, it was like watching you, and I'm not going to lie, I was cracking up in Mike's voice. Mike's voice will always be funny, but I will never try Mike Tyson in person because I know that I'm going to be on the floor. But you could see a grown man in Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson is proof that therapy works. And we have to allow black men the space to grow. Because when we do that, some amazing things can happen. And I feel like Bootsy can grow. Because you know what? Watching that interview, Bootsy was scared, but he was taking that shit in. And I think Mike made him think about some of the shit he be saying and how he come off to people. And I thought that was beautiful. And what I loved about it was at the beginning of the interview, Bootsy like, I'm 37 years old. And Mike like, you a baby. And I think that was so interesting to see Mike Tyson. The shit felt like a therapy session. Like, low-key, I would buy Mike Tyson motivational tapes to go to the gym with. And yes, Mike Tyson has a past. We all know Mike can be a little off. But it showed a level of gravitas, a level of depth, and a level of growth that I think sometimes we forget people have the ability to have. So hats off to Mike Tyson. And hopefully Bootsy will get something from that. For those of you who were like, oh, where were you at after the debates? I didn't feel like the debates was anything for me to comment on. We're in the middle of an election. And quite frankly, there was nothing groundbreaking about it. Trump followed the rules somewhat. I just didn't feel like it was really a thing. I watched it, but honestly, I felt like I could have been watching one of my shows. That's just me. But I'm going to call it a night. We've had some great, robust discussion. We're exactly, like I said, 1 week away from Election Day. Make sure that you get your vote out. But like I said again, at this point, don't mail shit in, sis. Don't mail it in, okay? If you're following me, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you click the bell for notifications. You can also follow me, youtube.com/Secretary of Shade, on social media at Dapper Dan Midas, as well as on Venmo and Cash App, bitch. And we will see you on Election Day countdown. Y'all be safe, be blessed, vote, get you some rest, and please, in this next week, do not let anyone disturb your peace. Y'all have a good night. I love you, and we're out.